Welcome to another episode of the Am I Mental podcast, the Doctors in Court edition, where we explore the often intertwined worlds of mental health, law, and ethics. Today, we're diving into a special edition where we'll dissect real-life cases where medical health professionals find themselves under scrutiny. I'm your host, Dr. Sabine Fonderson, and in this episode, we'll take an in-depth look at a particularly complex case involving a psychologist who was brought before a disciplinary board following the tragic death of a patient. We'll break down the timeline of events, we'll analyze the defendant's case, and we'll explore the disciplinary board's decision and how they made that decision. And I'm going to try and clarify any complicated terms along the way. At the end of the episode, I'll ask you two critical questions to reflect on, and I'll provide my thought as well. So let's see how we can navigate this challenging case. Our case centers around a psychologist, and he has been accused of mishandling the treatment of his patient, we'll call Miss E. And this treatment possibly led to Miss E's worsening condition and eventually death by suicide. The complaint was filed by Miss E's mother. Miss E was a young adult born in December of 1997 and had been struggling with severe mental health issues. In June of 2017, she was admitted to a psychiatric facility, and there she was appointed to the care of the psychologist as a therapist. And Miss E remained under the psychologist's care until March of 2018. Now, it's crucial to understand the context of this type of therapy. She received systemic therapy, and systemic therapy is also known as family therapy, and it focuses on the relationships within a family and how these interactions impact the mental health of an individual. And the mom, in this case, was critical of the psychologist's approach, particularly in how he managed the relationship between Miss E and herself. Now let's walk through the timeline to better understand the sequence of events. So in June 2017, Miss E is admitted to the psychiatric facility, and there the psychologist becomes Miss E's systemic therapist. And the goal was to address Miss E's complex mental health issues, which included a high risk of suicide. Now, between July 2017 and March of 2018, throughout Miss E's treatment, the therapeutic team attempted multiple times to involve Miss E's mother in the treatment process. However, Miss E repeatedly expressed discomfort with involving her mother and consistently refused to participate in family therapy sessions. In March of 2018, Miss E's condition deteriorated, and she was forcibly admitted to a closed psychiatric unit due to the risk of suicide. She was later transferred to another facility and eventually discharged to live with her mother. In May 2019, tragically, Miss E died by suicide. After Miss E's death, the mom filed a complaint against the psychologist, accusing him of not conducting a thorough systemic assessment and failing to properly involve her in Miss E's treatment. Now, the mom believed that these oversights contributed to Miss E's decline and ultimately her death. In response to these serious allegations, the psychologist presented a defense that centered on several key points. Number one, patient autonomy. The psychologist argued that Miss E was a competent adult who had consistently expressed a desire to keep her mother at a distance from her treatment. Miss E's autonomy and wishes were respected in this regard, which is a fundamental principle in mental health care. This included respecting Miss E's decision not to engage in systemic therapy with her mother. 2. The efforts to involve the mother. Despite Miss E's resistance, the psychologist and the therapeutic team made multiple attempts to involve the mother in the treatment process. However, each time Miss E declined. Now, the psychologist emphasized that these refusals were documented in the treatment records, demonstrating that the decision to exclude the mother from certain aspects of the treatment was made in accordance with Miss E's explicit wishes. 3. Sufficiency of care. The psychologist maintained that all standard procedures were followed during the treatment, including thorough assessments and regular progress reviews. The psychologist also pointed out that Ms. E had expressed satisfaction with the treatment on multiple occasions, suggesting that the therapeutic relationship was positive from her perspective. 4. Lack of evidence for causation. Now, the psychologist argued that the mom's claims of a direct link between the treatment provided and her daughter's tragic death were speculative. The defense highlighted that Ms. E had long-standing mental health issues, and despite the best efforts of the care team, her condition remained extremely challenging. Now, the disciplinary board's role was to determine whether the psychologist's actions fell within the bounds of what is considered appropriate and competent care in such a complex case. And here's how they approached the decision. Number 1, they examined the evidence. The board carefully reviewed all available evidence, including treatment records, progress reports, and statements from both parties. Now, a key evidence that was detailed was in the progress report from November of 2019, which contained multiple references to Ms. E's own statements about her treatment and relationship with her mother. The board also looked at the legal precedents and patient rights. The disciplinary board considered legal precedents related to patient autonomy, particularly the rights of adult patients to make decisions about their care. This was a crucial factor, as E was an adult capable of making her own decisions at the time of her treatment. 3. Assessment of systemic therapy role. The board also evaluated whether the psychologist had appropriately fulfilled his role as a systemic therapist. They considered whether the decision to respect Ms. E's wishes to exclude her mother from the therapy sessions was justified, and whether the psychologist's overall approach to the treatment was in line with established standards of care. And lastly, consideration of the mother's perspective. While the board acknowledged the mother's grief and frustration, they had to weigh this against the professional and ethical obligations that the psychologist had to Ms. E as the primary patient. The board noted that while the mother's concerns were understandable, they ultimately did not align with Ms. E's express wishes and the standard practices in such cases. So after a thorough review, the board made the following decisions. The board determined that the mother did not have a legal standing to bring the complaint on behalf of her deceased daughter. Well, this is because there was insufficient evidence to suggest that her daughter would have wanted the mother to file such a complaint. The board found that Ms. E was satisfied with her treatment, and there was no indication that she had any desires to challenge it before her death. As a result, the board declared the mother's complaint inadmissible, meaning that the case could not proceed further under the legal framework that governs such disciplinary actions. And this decision effectively cleared the psychologist of any wrongdoing in the eyes of the disciplinary board. This ruling highlights the importance of respecting patient autonomy, especially in cases involving adult patients with complex mental health issues. It also underscores the challenges healthcare professionals face when balancing the wishes of their patients with the concerns of the family members. This case is a poignant reminder of the difficult decisions that mental health professionals must make, often under emotionally charged circumstances. While the outcome of this case may bring some closure for the psychologist involved, it also leaves us with critical questions about how we navigate the intricate dynamics between patients, their families, and the healthcare providers who serve them. And before we wrap up, I want to leave you with 2 questions to think about. How should healthcare professionals balance patient autonomy with the concerns of family members, especially in cases where the patient's mental health is fragile? This is a complex issue with no easy answer, and patient autonomy is a fundamental principle in healthcare. But it must be balanced with the need to involve family members in cases where their support could be beneficial. The key lies in open communications, setting clear expectations, and understanding each patient's unique situation. It's also crucial for healthcare professionals to document all decisions and the rationale behind them to protect both the patient's rights and the professional responsibilities. Question 2. What role should a family member play in the decision-making process for an adult patient with severe mental health issues? Family members can play a supportive role, but their involvement should be guided by the patient's wishes. In cases where the patient is an adult and capable of making decisions, the healthcare provider's primary obligation is to the patient. Family involvement should be encouraged when appropriate, but it must not override the patient's autonomy. This balance is delicate and requires careful navigation by all parties involved. Thank you for joining me on this deep dive into the complexities of medical accountability in mental health care. And if you found this discussion insightful, please share this episode with others and don't forget to subscribe for more episodes of Am I Mental? Until next time, take care.